Us, everybody. Welcome back to the Grand Torino. Delighted you could join me again. Please, as I always do before we get started, don't forget, press the like button, press the subscription button and the bell, and you'll be reminded of future broadcasts here on the Grand Torino. And before we get started as well, thank you for your continued support to all my Patreon and PayPal subscribers. I encourage you, please, head over to the Grand Torino website, World Wide Web, grandtorino.ie. Visit our merch store there for t-shirts and other paraphernalia to help elevate and keep the platform going so we can bring these other stories and different broadcasts from Ireland, keeping you abreast of things going on here. Wanted to touch upon many great articles going on throughout the week, but I wanted to bring an open letter from Professor Anthony Coughlin of Trinity College. And the Burkeen Journal did a great breakdown of the NGO, the industry, the huge behemoth that it has become over here, and finish off with a breaking story over here towards the end. But first of all, let me get started here. The letter starts, an open letter on Irish attitudes to Brexit by Anthony Coughlin. To Fintan O'Toole, care of the Irish Times, Dublin 2, Tuesday the 6th of August 2019. Dear Fintan, I had to smile to myself at seeing the heading of today's Irish Times editorial. Rhetoric could damage Anglo-Irish relations. When the Irish Times has been the principal source of anti-English and anti-Brexit rhetoric in the 3 years since the 2016 referendum, thereby significantly damaging those very relations. Over that time, the Irish Times has consistently sneered at the 17 million people who voted to leave the EU and the UK referendum as reactionaries, racists, and rednecks. At least weekly, sometimes daily, your cartoonist Martin Turner has mocked the Brexiteers. Your own book on the subject plugged abysms of Boyle to throw at Boris Johnson and Jacob Rees-Mogg for supposedly responsible for Brexit, even though the large numbers of British Labour supporters and left-wingers, as well as Conservatives and non-party people, were among the 17 million who voted to leave. The truth is that Brexit is neither a right-wing or a left-wing cause. It is just democratic, a value that transcends conventional right and left. By voting to take back control, the Brexiteers are looking for no more than the classic democratic right to make their own laws, command their own money and borders, and decide their own government policies, rather than have these decided by a supranational EU federation in which the Brussels Commission, Council of Ministers and Court, bodies that are responsible as collectives to no one, effectively decide most of their laws and policies. At bottom, the EU project is an attempt to undermine the democratic heritage of the French Revolution, the right of nations to self-determination, in the interest of European transnational big business and high finance and the state interest of Germany and France. It hollows out Europe's nation states, leaving their governmental structures formally intact but with their original core functions sucked out of them. Yet this supranational integration project is historically doomed. For there is no European demos or people that could give it democratic legitimacy. Democracy can exist only at the level of the nation state. It is the principle that animates the Brexit cause. It is a pity that you and the Irish Times are so uncritically supportive of this anti-democratic project. The Irish backstop was an attempt to keep the UK as a whole in the EU customs union and single market, even though any meaningful Brexit must mean leaving these. If the Varadkar Coveney government had conceded a time limit on the backstop, it would have got through the House of Commons on the third vote, and Mrs May would still be British Prime Minister. Now that the Tory government is bent on really leaving, which will happen, even if there should be a Labour-Corbyn interlude, it is surely time for the Irish government, in the interest of the Irish people, to do what Ray Bassett, Dan O'Brien, Owen Harris and others have been urging, seeking to act as a mediator between the EU and the UK and help London get the best possible deal with the EU, while recognising that the UK is leaving the customs union and single market. The EU Commission will be annoyed at such a turn, but most EU member states will greet it with relief. I am copying this letter, plus the enclosed press articles on Brexit that you may not have seen, to various media people and politicians because of the public interest nature of this issue. All the very best to you and yours. Sincerely, Anthony Coughlin, Director, Associate Professor Emeritus of Social Policy in Trinity College. Sniding and smearing. Now I want to move on straight away over to the Burkean Journal's great breakdown of the NGO behemoth that's running amok here in Ireland. Introducing the Irish NGOs Complex by Kieran Brennan on 15th of the 8th, 2019. And we begin. The following is a multi-part series examining the role of Ireland's NGO, non-governmental organisation sector in influencing journalism and policy formation, as well as means to combat it. So far, in the eyes of this author, criticism of the NGO lobby has been vague and constantly relapses into recursive conspiracy theories without proper analysis. This series aims to stimulate discussions on this, the most pressing issue. And I'll link all these articles, as I normally do, in the description box for you to read through back yourself. Soft power in Ireland. Soft power in Ireland today is made manifest by our inordinately sized NGO sector. The old 26-county clerical state has melted away under a furore of social change and scandal. And in its place, the state has the NGO class and its progressive doctrines. For any observer of daily life, Irish media life, these organisations have a slight but measurable effect on policy formation and commanding control over Irish journalism. For nationalists, they embody nothing short of the long hand of globalism in Ireland. To summarise, NGOs known as non-profits in America are broadly defined as non-state actors, usually funded by the state or philanthropists, engaged in a variety of work in social and political spheres. It should be noted that the vast majority of these organisations are involved in worthwhile causes in the realm of education and healthcare. However, the more pernicious aspects engage in pushing the envelope on progressive policies around immigration and social affairs. For rightists, we must acknowledge and face up to the fact that the NGO sector is the beating heart of Irish liberalism, and we must focus our efforts on combating and even mimicking them wherever possible. What the Knights of Columbus were to the 20th century Irish Catholicism, the NGO complex is to Irish globalism. Too true. Whether it be the current rush towards legislation against hate speech or the cynical fixation on closing direct provision, the NGO class grooms our media consumption in ways that the average consumer can scarcely fathom. The daily communication of these groups with our journalistic class puts these small, strategically located NGO networks in the driving seat of news formation. Very critical, great insight. A first step in diagnosing the problems of nomenclature, President Eisenhower rather famously highlighted the malignant influence of the arms industry on American politics as being the military-industrial complex. The Irish NGO complex is a confluence of media and activists geared towards a specific set of left liberal policies, as well as actively grooming media narratives in Ireland. It is not conspiracy, but a statement of fact to highlight this symbiotic relationship. If the dysfunctional relationship between the political and financial power resulted in the 2008 collapse, arguably the NGO complex sets the stage for similar social consequences in Ireland down the line. A historical analysis of the rise of the NGO complex is probably worth a series in itself. However, to summarise, Ireland never fully developed a properly functioning civic culture, with the vacuum being filled for the most of the 20th century by the Catholic Church. As the Church receded, a new class of social activists moved into its place. In recent years, this class has gone into turbocharge, winning major victories in the abortion and gay marriage referenda. Presently, the Oireachtas lies practically prostrate before the NGOs, with quick-fire legislation on transgenderism and hate speech being driven by the NGO sector. It is a warped cycle where the Irish state funds supposed radicals who lobby in a particular direction, often demanding more money from the public purse. ENOR Ireland, a case study in Irish NGO culture. A textbook example of the operations of the Irish NGO industry is that of ENOR Ireland. ENOR, an acronym for European Network Against Racism, is a pan-European initiative outwardly campaigning against racism and trying to build a nexus of of anti-racist activists. Its remit includes an onus on lobbying for hate speech laws, as well as a rather worrisome focus on elections. While the Irish press mimic their American counterparts in looking for some clandestine right-wing conspiracy to influence Irish elections, NGO Ireland can operate openly with state and foreign funding in influencing Irish elections with an ideological mission statement to boot. On a yearly basis, the passive report consumer of news in Ireland will hear of their work through their regular media interactions and quarterly report into racism. These reports are largely compiled of incidents compiled from the ITSI report feature, allowing members of the public to document incidences of racism. Subsequently, members of ENOR are able to flaunt their findings on the national media scene, regardless of their methodology. These exhibits how the NGO complex is able to attain regular media access to broadcast a pre-scripted narrative on the sudden rise in racism. In the realm of hate speech legislation, the group spearheads the so-called Coalition Against Hate Crime in Ireland, and an alliance of similar NGOs aiming to influence the creation of hate crime legislation. Readers of this publication should well understand that the so-called hate crime legislation is totalitarian in nature, as shown in the UK and elsewhere, designed to stamp out dissent on matters of migration and social matters. Accounts listed for the ENR Ireland the year ending 2017 denote an income stream of 95,571, with the NGO domiciled in Dublin city centre. Approximately 3/4 of this income originated directly from the taxpayer by way of the Department of Housing and Local Government. Considering the transparent ideology bent of the NGOs, as well as its commitment to pursue onerous hate speech legislation, this funding may irk many taxpayers, I for one. As a trusted flagger for Facebook, it has the ability to coordinate with the tech giant to remove dissident speech under the banner of hate speech. In a recent soft touch article in the Sunday Business Post, it advocated the rather sinister policy of removing posts on the basis of what it is said in the comment section rather than the post itself. This would rapidly expand the purview of what can be removed by social media giants, regardless of what the original poster says. Very nefarious. You cannot be held accountable for what's in your comment section, same as the newspaper journals, who often shut down their comment sections because they're laughed at with incredulity of what they purport to write. The article itself was penned by Aaron Rogan, who came to notice in this publication on accounts of disingenuous attempts to relate a growing right-wing presence in Ireland to nefarious foreign actors. In both articles, Rogan draws on the two explicitly left-wing NGOs, ENR and Cuivla, for commentary, a further indication of the daily cross-pollination between NGOs and the media. Skimming the social media pages of its activists, one can often see a recurring pattern. A strong history of left-wing activism has become professionalized and given standing in civic society by the NGO itself. As rightist voices are gradually marginalized from public life, elements of the hard left are given the royal road to influence through the NGO sector. Another noticeable feature is the significant proportion of staff who are employed in academia. This is crucial, as it emphasizes the NGO complex can outsource some of its cost to academia instead of drawing on state funding. This May, the group arranged lobbying of Irish politicians around the issue of combating racism during the European and local elections under its so-called anti-racism pledge. The implicit aim of this campaign was to challenge any hint of anti-immigration sentiment by direct lobbying of politicians. In the recent debacle over the irregularities of Social Democrat candidate Eli Kizombe, I think I'm pronouncing that right, spokespeople for ENR were platformed to air their disgust at the Sunday Times, highlighting the flagrant discrepancies in Kizombe's story. Most remarkably, spokesman for ENR Ireland, Shane O'Curry, chastised the paper for using photo where Miss Kizombe was not smiling. Put succinctly, ENR Ireland, like a multitude of other NGOs, does the legwork for globalism in Ireland. Let me read that again. Put succinctly, ENR Ireland, like a multitude of other NGOs, does the legwork for globalism in Ireland, using euphemisms like civil society outreach. They extend themselves into the media narrative and have direct access to lawmakers. ENR Ireland is a drop in the ocean, but is a microcosm of the NGO complex at work on a daily basis. Coming to terms with the NGO complex, as stressed throughout globalism, cannot be understood in Ireland without a proper understanding, whether it be the siren calls to abolish direct provision or the envelope being pushed on matters of transgenderism and secular education. The NGO complex stalks Irish life like no other force. The insidious role played by the developers and local politics has been well documented on the run-up to the 2018 crash. It would appear that very little concern is being paid to the ominous feedback loop created by the insertion of NGOs into Irish news and policy formation. Ireland does not need these organisations or their apparatchiks, and the sooner that they are no longer influential, the better. For the future trajectory of Ireland will be in part defined by how the NGO complex is faced down. Sterling article, Kieran, well done. And like I said, I'll leave those links in the description box down below. And finally, breaking news today, and I've taken down the adverts, but this article breaks the 17th of the 8th, 2019. Fears over immigration scam after Garda took bribes to stamp fake visa papers. A major corruption investigation is underway after Garda allegedly took bribes to give several hundred foreign nationals permission to stay in Ireland illegally. Up to 800 men and women from Pakistan and India paid €10,000 each to have the Garda stamp a form stating that they had shown the necessary documents granting them the right to work here and claim benefits, it is alleged. Officers believe the Garda was in league with a Pakistani fixer in the high-level immigration fraud. The Pakistani man organised busloads of his fellow countrymen to travel to the Garda station, where the officer would stamp the documents, it is alleged. There are now deep concerns with An Garda Síochána, that's the Irish police state, that the scam allowed criminal elements arrive here and then disappear. The men and women involved have entered Ireland legally on student visas, and when those expired, they should not have been permitted to remain. Detectives say that the fixer and the Garda split the €10,000 payments between them, €10,000 payments between them. This high-level immigration scam allegedly went on for more than 6 years, 6 years, and detectives have established that as many as 1,000 men and women were granted work permits to remain in Ireland and claim benefits. 10,000 a pop, 1,000 so far over the 6 years, 5,000 each way. Do the maths on what this Garda sold his country out for. Yeah, you sold your country out for, you rat. It is understood that the Gardaí have been trying to track down all the people who are granted status to remain here, but many have disappeared. One source said that there were valid concerns that the criminal elements had exploited the system and their whereabouts is now unknown. Extra.ie, who published this article, can reveal that a major criminal investigation into the scam is now almost complete and developments are due imminently. The investigation is being led by local detectives, and the Garda National Immigration Bureau is also involved in the extensive probe. Extra.ie understands that the Garda concerned was taken in for questioning when concerns arose about the high numbers of Pakistani and Indian nationals being granted work permits by the rank and file officer. The Garda made some admissions when being quizzed by colleagues almost 2 years ago, Extra.ie understands. However, the officer has not been arrested. Gardaí have been painstakingly investigating the complex case since and have been shocked by the scale of the alleged crime. A Garda spokesman declined to comment on the investigation when contacted by this newspaper. A spokesman said, An Garda Síochána does not comment on ongoing investigations. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. How can I say? I mean, it's apparent as you look around. I mean, more Garda corruption. 6 years this has been going on. Up to 1,000 illegal immigrants. I bet your bottom dollar you could double that, triple it, no matter what. you walk around Dublin any number of times. Not only is the scam of English visas being exploited daily, I know Gerard Murphy is doing some investigation on that, on the underground um, passport and identity scams that are being run in and around Dublin, allowing foreign nationals to gain access to our welfare state. This has been going on and is well known, but again, you can see the malaise in the Garda investigations. In any investigation, look at my own investigation, not one feedback, even though I have a pulse number for the assault, which was live streamed for all to see, I still have yet to receive a single phone call from the Garda representative for me. So I can only imagine that this shit show will just be brushed under the carpet and forgotten about. You have to realise that, particularly that Garda, you are selling this country out. You are selling this country out for the shekels, for consumerism, for your own benefit. You have sold this country out by selling these fake, or by signing these, giving these Garda stamps to these illegals, who not only should they all be recounted, they should all be deported. If you gained access here illegally, I'm sorry about you. You have to go. Send them home. As Ryan Tubridy, who seems to get an enormous amount of texts after he gets his radio broadcast show. I'll also remind you that you're under broadcast publications, you have to show them an enormous amount of text should people wish to write in and question Mr. Tubridy on his allegations of spurious text that he gets when he brings in his diverse guests. But I'm disgusted again at more Garda corruption. But with the NGO's facilitation and Irish journalism the way it is, this story will just pitter-patter into the nebulous ethos and just be forgotten about. Livid is not a word. But anyway, I want to finish off. Thank you very much. Sorry for the interludes in between. A lot going on in the background. I know we keep alluding to it, but it's just not ready to form just yet. I want to thank you all again for your continued support. And again, as I always do, I encourage you, please don't forget, press the like button, press the subscription button and the blue bell, and you'll be reminded of future broadcasts here in the Grand Torino. Okay, Paige, it's got to sign off. Talk to you soon. Boss.